Welcome to a photographic tour of St. John's Historic Cemetery, located at 718 Jackson Street, Thibodaux, Louisiana. The cemetery, as well as St. John's Episcopal Church, are located on property once a part of Richfield Plantation, owned by George and Caroline Guyon. The Guyons were formerly of Natchez, Mississippi, and moved to Bayou Lafourche around 1832. Around 1843, the Guyons subdivided parts of Richfield Plantation and donated this city block of land to St. John's. Hence, the church and the cemetery were born. People of various faiths are buried in the cemetery. Of about 800 people buried here, there are denominations of Protestants, as well as Roman Catholics and Jews. Veterans from the War of 1812, the War with Mexico, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, World Wars I and II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War are also buried here. The cemetery has a cruciform design, and the main and cross aisles are named for a former priest or founder. There are at least 3 things to note about this cemetery: its fence and gates, its live oaks, and its varied tombs and burials. The surround fence of cast iron is not original to the cemetery. Originally, the cemetery had no fence, allowing goats and other domestic animals to roam freely. These animals wreaked havoc to the grounds as well as the graves. The first fence constructed was a wooden picket fence. Subject to damage and rot, it was eventually replaced in 1916 by the present cast iron fence and gates you see here. The front gate facing Jackson Street is primarily used for pedestrian access, while the rear gate serves for passage of lawn maintenance and funeral vehicles. As you can see, the fence is in need of repair due to several factors. It suffers damage caused by the growth of tree roots, damage caused by automobiles traveling along adjacent streets, and damage from improper repairs over the years. Finding qualified iron workers is difficult and costly. Just as the fence, the live oak trees are not original to the cemetery. Most of the trees were planted in the late 1850s by Thomas Trader of Maryland, who officiated at St. John's from 1854 until 1869. The oaks do provide a special atmosphere to the cemetery and the community, but can be expensive to maintain. They must be mulched and trimmed periodically. Of course, harsh storms such as hurricanes cause severe damage, resulting in additional maintenance costs. As you look across the cemetery, you will notice that there are a variety of structures found here. These old structures were constructed by skilled masons, usually using materials and designs that were popular during the time of construction. Some popular burial sites seen in the cemetery are similar to Greek and Roman temples. Some bear a resemblance to Roman sarcophaguses and obelisks. Some sites are as simple as rectangular boxes. Mesopotamian as well as Gothic styles can also be found in the cemetery. Some burials reflect economic stress of families and are simple slabs. The tombs of yellow fever and influenza victims from epidemics of 1853, 1878, and 1918 also tend to be simple. Because there were so many people needing burials, The bodies had to be buried quickly, and there was very little time to construct fancy structures. There is a mausoleum called a lawn crypt located in the cemetery, which is believed to be the first mausoleum of Thibodaux. It dates back to the 1960s and supplied burial room at a time when available space in the cemetery was scarce. As you climb the set of stairs, you will notice that there are also burials on the roof of the mausoleum. Some tombs are in good shape and some are not. Several factors contributing to the poor condition of tombs are weather, poor maintenance, dirt, mold, plants, and lawn maintenance equipment hitting the tomb corners. Chemical spraying of weeds also damages old tombs. Because skilled masons use different techniques and materials from those used today, the restoration of these old tombs that are in poor condition is expensive and an ongoing challenge. The mortar they used, for example, was a lime and sand mortar. Current Portland cement for repairs causes old brick to be sealed when it needs to breathe and allow moisture to escape. Some persons of interest buried in this historic cemetery are George Guyon, who donated the land for the cemetery and church; Confederate Captain Charles Williams, owner of Sunnyside Plantation on LA 308 near Lafourche Crossing, and the father of Minnie Williams, who donated the money for the existing fence; James McAllister, Thibodaux's first mayor; James Frost, a Pennsylvania native who immigrated to Thibodaux in 1840 and built the church; and Francis T. Nichols, who was George Guyon's son-in-law. Nichols was a brigadier general in the Civil War, twice served as Louisiana's governor, and was Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court. Nichols State University, located in Thibodaux, takes its name from Francis T. Nichols. Buried here also is the Indiana native Silas Grissamore. He steamboated downriver to Bayou Lafourche in the 1850s, established a store in Thibodaux, joined the Army of the Confederacy, and served after the Civil War several times as Thibodaux's mayor and as the parish police jury president. He was also the editor and publisher of the Thibodaux Weekly Sentinel until the 1890s. There is a St. John's Historic Cemetery Association. It is a charitable organization that was formed over 100 years ago to assist in the preservation and restoration of the cemetery. Its main goal is to help raise money for maintenance and restoration. After all, many of the people buried here no longer have family in the area to provide for the upkeep of the tombs, so this expense is passed on to the church, assisted by the association. The Cemetery Association also helps keep people aware of the significance of the cemetery and those who are buried here. They do this in various ways, such as by publishing a newsletter twice a year, hosting tours and reenactments, and erecting the signs that you see here and there near tombs. Finally, the association encourages visits and assists visitors with information. There is a St. John's Historic Cemetery website, stjhca.org, which offers additional information. St. John's Episcopal Church and the cemetery are on the National Register of Historic Places. It is certainly one of South Louisiana's treasures and is worthy of preservation. The cemetery is open daylight hours and at no charge to visitors.